Hi everyone, this is my service learning presentation. My name is Haley Hallman and I completed my service learning experience at Vital Caring Hospice, which is located in Conroe, Texas. This organization helped provide end of life care to patients who are facing terminal illness and focusing on comfort, dignity, and quality of life rather than curative treatment. The mission of hospice care was to support or is to support both the patient and their family emotionally, physically, and socially during this stage of life. My responsibilities were that I were to visit the patient either or whether that were in respite or home care. I visited the patient twice in respite care. The first time was to meet the patient with my volunteer coordinator, and the second one was me being there, sitting with him, talking to him, giving companionship. I also met his wife to briefly introduce myself and what I'm here for, and to be there if she ever needed me to. If she didn't want him to be alone, I was always a call away, or like even just being in respite so he'd have someone sitting there and being that voice for him if needed. I provided companionship, and then I met in respite care and home, engaged in conversation to an extent, and I say this because my patient wasn't fully verbal. He was coherent, he was understanding. However, the most you could get out of him is maybe a yeah, which it was difficult. That was one of the barriers that I had to change directions from. However, his wife was just telling me that honestly, conversation, just tell him about you and, just about the day and everything. So that's what I did. She also acknowledged that he was really um, into his faith, and so whenever I went to respite, I had put on some gospel music for him to make him feel more at home. And these are some pictures that I had put in this slide because I didn't want to put his face in there because of HIPAA, of course, but just to kind of show you what that was. And I didn't take any pictures inside the home due to um, not being comfortable taking pictures inside their house or of the house. My therapeutic use of self. One important concept I applied during my experience was therapeutic use of self. This refers to the intentional use of one's personality, communication style, and empathy to support a client. And in hospice care, this concept is extremely important because patients are often dealing with emotional distress, fear, or loneliness. I used active listening to an extent. Again, I maintained eye contact for the most part whenever he was awake and coherent, and showed empathy to help the patient feel heard and understood. I did this by just acknowledging and showing him that my presence was here and I was here for him. Um, and like for an example, instead of trying to fix anything, I would just simply be present and validating feelings. Or if he had an itch, I'd help him itch it. Obviously, he couldn't really express those needs to me. This helped build trust and created a safe space for um, my patient to feel more comfortable with me that I felt from the beginning to the end. This experience taught me how powerful empathy and presence can be in therapeutic relationships. Another key concept I used was communication strategies, which I used simple and clear communication, um, Effective communication is essential in healthcare, especially in hospice settings, especially where patients may have emotional or physical limitations. My patient had both emotional and physical limitations, so I adapted my communication style to meet the patient's needs by speaking clearly and acknowledging his presence, like I said before, and allowing for pauses when needed. Um, I also paid attention to his nonverbal communication a lot, such as his body language and eyes. Eyes were a big, they said a lot whenever he couldn't say a lot. So I also made sure not to rush conversations, took my time, allowed him to acknowledge if wanted to, and withdrew myself if he wasn't feeling up to it. This helped him feel more respected, I would assume, and in control because I was just there for him. During my experience, I also observed interprofessional collaboration. And while I was in respite care, hospice, their team of professionals, including nurses, aides, and social workers and therapists, they were all working together to support the patient. Whenever I was there, I had experienced his nurses, his doctors, and a CRN. I think that's what it was. But they were all coming together to have a voice for him and um, to make sure he was feeling okay. Although my role was limited to companionship, I was able to see how each team member contributed to the patient's care. This showed me an importance of teamwork and collaboration and communication among healthcare professionals. OT core values. This experience strongly reflected several occupational therapy core values, including dignity, compassion, and respect for the patient. I prioritized my patients' emotional needs and focused on making them feel supported. Dignity was very important, as hospice patients deserve to be treated with respect and honor, regardless of their condition. The nurses did a great job at that, and it felt really nice to and affirming to hear um, from because you hear a lot of things at respite care, but I engaged in all positive. I ensured that I also maintained professionalism and respect in the patient's preference at all times. I would remove myself whenever they would need to change him or do anything like that to give him his privacy that he needed. Compassion that guided my interactions and allowed me to connect with the patient on a deeper level and his family as well. Leadership and principles. I took initiative during my visits. I maintained professionalism and adapted to different setting. Like I said, I had to go into home, I had to go into respite. They were both about 45 minutes away from each other, and the driving it wasn't a lot, but I had to adapt and go where he was. So my leadership principles were also present in my experience, even though I was in a volunteer role. Um, I showed leadership by being reliable and showing up prepared and adapting to different environments. I also maintained professionalism and ensured that I followed the expectations while getting my hours in. And occupational justice. In hospice care, patients may have limited physical abilities, but they still deserve opportunities for meaningful interaction and engagement. By providing companionship, I supported the patient's ability to participate in conversation and social interaction. This showed me that even small occupations like talking or sharing stories are meaningful and important overall well being. Social justice. This involves the access to hospice care and compassionate support regardless of your background. Conclusion. Overall, I had a positive and meaningful experience. This really opened my eyes into how everything works and how everyone worked together. I also developed a stronger communication skills, and this will help me grow professionally and independently in the future OTA career. Thank you.